The purpose of this video is to provide a supplement to the written documentation to the viewer application that you can find online at the ECDB homepage. Now, there's lots of text online there, but the purpose of this video is mainly to save you the bother of actually having to read it. So we're introducing an application called Viewer, the purpose of which is to link transcribed texts in the ECDB database with images of the individual inscriptions and graphs of inscriptions as they were published in the original publication. So you'll see how that all works in a minute. Now, the code for all this is up on GitHub, and you're welcome to download it and play around with that if you want to. Let's have a look at what the application looks like on startup. On startup, you see something like this. On the left-hand pane, we've got the so-called transcriptions pane. So you've got transcriptions of all of the inscriptions that appear on this particular inscribed surface. And on the right-hand side, you've got a raw image from the original publication. In this case, it's the Huayuan Zhuang Dongdi Jiagu publication, or Huadong for short, or HD for short. And this is just one of the page images from that book. Now, the first two keys that we'll introduce are A for advance and B for back. Now, in the mode that we're currently in, you can advance through the publication. Notice that at the moment we're on, you can probably just about make out the number 237 down there. We're on item 237 at the moment. If we advance through the text, then we get to 238 and 239 on the next page. That's 239. This is 240, 241, and that's with pressing the A key. Now, pressing the B key, we can move back the other way, back through our publication, back to where we started from. There we go. There's 237 again. And we can go further back, right the way back to the beginning, back to number 1. So, first question: why, when we fired up the application, did it start on 237? Well, whenever you start the application, it looks at a configuration file. At the moment, it's a very, very simple configuration file. Let's have a look at that particular configuration file. Let's see if we can find it. It's in the home folder, and it's called .changjie. So there we are. There we're in the home folder. Now, it's because it starts with a dot. It's a so-called hidden file. So we need to go to display. We're going to need to show hidden files. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. There we go. .changjie. That's the configuration file. As I say, a very, very simple one-line configuration file at the moment. That is read whenever the application starts up. Now, at the moment, it's telling us that last surface equals 236. That means that the last time this application was used, the last surface to be viewed or to be edited was number 236. And what it helpfully does is save that file whenever you shut the program down, and when you reopen it, it will try to open the image, the next surface in the list. In this case, 237. Okay, I hope that's clear. Back to our application. Right. Let's start by looking right down here at the bottom at the so-called what do you call these things? Status bar down at the bottom. First thing it tells us is surface 108237. Now, 237 is the name of the surface, as we've already said. Number 237 in the Huayuan Zhuang Dongdi corpus. 108 just happens to be the ID number of that particular publication. That's an internal number used by the application by the database as a whole. It would have been nicer, I suppose, if I'd substituted the name of the publication there for the ID number. But there we go, that's what it is. Then we go on to surface type PV, plastron ventral. That's what that PV is short for. So this is the ventral surface of a turtle plastron. We've then got a zoom number. We've got times 0.237305. That tells us how much this page image has been zoomed. And we can do a bit of zooming ourselves. So with by hitting the plus key, we can zoom in. That's shift and the plus key, right? We can zoom in a bit. And if you look down at the bottom, we've now zoomed up to 100% magnification, right? We can even keep going. We can zoom it beyond its maximum, but as you can see, we've already got a few of those JPEG artifacts showing up, and it's not looking so pretty anymore. It's diminishing returns once we zoom beyond 100%. But there we go. We do get a very big view of the inscribed characters themselves. By hitting the minus key, we can shrink back down. We can zoom out. There we go. We're gradually zooming out. And by there we go, back to the magnification we were originally at, which is 0.237, which must be what? I think it zooms a third, 2/3 every time you hit one of those keys. The other thing you can do is hit 0, which will zoom to 100% magnification in one jump and stay there, right? Okay, let's zoom back down again so we've got a shot of the whole thing. So there's our zoom. The next thing in our status bar is the rotation equals 0. You can also, as well as zooming, you can also rotate the image by using the greater than and less than signs. So again, you need to hit shift with those, right? But that allows you to rotate the image. Because sometimes inscriptions are not aligned very neatly with the page on which they're reproduced, and sometimes individual characters within inscriptions are also rather skew. But we can correct for all that by rotating the page if we need to. Okay, next thing in the status bar is the so-called mode. Now at the moment we're in what's called surface mode. The purpose of surface mode is simply to record a bounding box that will capture the entirety of the inscribed surface. Now the entirety of the inscribed surface here is approximately the area that I'm outlining with the cursor at the moment. So all the rest of this extraneous white space lies outside the surface area, and we just want to capture the area that corresponds to the inscribed surface itself. Now that's not a particularly big deal in this particular case, but let's advance one more time with our A key. There we go. Now on this page of the publication, we've actually got two inscribed surfaces on the same page. So we would want to crop away one of those. So if we were doing 238, we'd want to crop out that area there, or rather crop to that particular area there. And if we were doing 239, we want to just capture that area there within our surface. So that's the purpose of surface mode, is to explain to the computer, let's go back, exactly what or rather to record in the database exactly what the dimensions are of the inscribed surface. The final thing you can see after mode equals surface, we've also got locked. Now, in order to prevent any accidental editing, the application locks whenever you move to a new surface. So in order to unlock, we just hit the U key. There we go. You should be able to see that it's now changed to unlock. That means we can now edit this surface. Let's have a go at doing that. Let's begin by dragging our bounding box to capture the inscribed surface. So we want something like that, right? There's no harm in including the numbers that appear on the bottom there. They're not necessary. We could leave them out like that, or we could include them that way. But what we want to do is to make sure that all of the inscribed surface is captured within our bounding box. And then once we let go of that, so we drag and then hold and then let go once we've got it in the right position, and there should be a green border around the area that's been captured. Now if we decide we don't like the area we've captured, if we made an error, for example, we can hit backspace and delete it and go back to where we were. So for example, if we did something like that, or if we drag too short of the full amount, we've missed out this chunk down the edge. We've got that sticking out. We can simply hit backspace or simply redrag. That's the easiest way of doing it. There we go. We can simply redrag to capture the inscribed surface region, okay, of the page, of the publication page. That's all there is to it for surface mode. So now what we can do is go down to what's called inscription mode, and to do that we hit the spacebar. There we go. As you could probably tell, what we just did was zoom in to the area that was captured in the previous screen. So now we're looking at exactly that region of the page image that we captured and decided was going to be the surface image. Now, what we need to do in this, as you notice, the mode is also changed. We're now in inscription mode, and in inscription mode, our aim is to draw bounding boxes around individual images and match them up to the inscriptions that appear in the left-hand transcription pane. So we're not going to do the whole thing. As you can see, there are some 15 different transcriptions in the left-hand pane here. We're just going to do one. Let's move this. First of all, look at the left-hand pane. So to navigate in the left-hand pane, notice that at the moment the first transcription is highlighted as a white background. That means that's the current transcription that we're looking at. Now, if we hit the Shift button and the arrow keys, we can move, or the up and down arrow keys, we can change the current transcription. Now, the one I want is actually this one down here, number 9, that reads "Geng Yin Sui Zu Jia," a female cow, right? One female cow to that particular ancestor. I guess that's Ziyong. And because that's one of the longer, more interesting inscriptions, let's move that up to the top. Now, to reload, at the moment it's got ordinal position 9 in the list, but we're gonna move that right up to the top because that's what we want to focus on. So we're going to hold Shift down, or rather hold Control down, and the up arrow key, and that begins to drag that up through the ordinal sequence right up to the top. Do you see how that's working? So now we've got that same inscription, Gongyin Sui Zujia, female cow, one female cow to Ziyong. And then they've got the 4 crack numbers following it. That's now the top of the list. That's now ordinal position 1. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to match that up to a section of the page image, or rather of the surface image. Notice at the moment it begins with 1/no image. Right. Again, I'm looking at the transcription pane over here. 1 is the ordinal number of the transcription, which is the text which appears here, and no image means at the moment it's set to not have any corresponding image on the right hand side. We want to change that. So to do that, we hit what is it? Shift N for no image, right? And Shift N is going to remove that no, or rather toggle that no image. See, with Shift N we can switch it on and off, right? On and off. And now we set it to off. This slot will now accept an image number from the right hand image pane. So what we need to do is to find out where that transcribed text actually occurs on the image. Now, in fact, it's this inscription on the right hand side here. So let's zoom in on that. Let's hit our plus key a few times, and we use the arrow keys to move around to get back that bit of the image that we had before. I don't know whether you can see that clearly or not, but there we got Gong Yin Sui Zu Jia, female cow. Right. Let's zoom out a little bit so we can capture all of it at once. Have we got all of it there? I think we have. Right. That's the first character. The text goes down there to as far as Jian or Xian. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 are the corresponding crack numbers. So we've got all of it on the screen at the same time. So we can now begin to drag our bounding box around that inscription. There we go. We've captured it. And what you should see on the left-hand transcription pane is that a 1 has been added here where that no image used to be, telling us that the first transcription, number 1 in the transcription list, corresponds with the first bounding box in the right hand image pane. Now at the moment there's only one bounding box in the image pane, but we could add more, right? So actually let's do this the right way. Let's make the second transcription the right image. So as you can see, there's another very similar transcription on the same date to the same ancestor with the same type and number of sacrificial animals. Now if we hit Shift N for that, we can also make that we can remove the no image restriction on that one also. Now in fact that inscription is somewhere down here in the image. So let's zoom back into that, move down as well. By the way, you can move the image around by either using the arrow keys on their own without any shift or anything like that. At the moment I'm just using the arrow keys, or you can drag the sliders in the edge of the window, or you can roll the mouse wheel for up and down, right? Let's use the slider there at the bottom too, right? This is the inscription we're talking about. Gong Yin Sui Zu, and it's kind of invisible, but they know what it says because they've looked at the other one. Zu Jia, I guess. There's the female cow. There's the numeral 1. There's the recipient Ziyong, and there's the final character Jian or Xian. This is probably pronounced here. One question I suppose is whether that's a crack number or whether that's I'm wondering whether maybe that's the crack number up there. I don't know. A bit difficult to tell. Not important though for our purposes, which are purely illustrative at the moment. So what we do for this one is drag a bounding box around that one too. Now notice that unlike on the previous mode, on the so-called surface mode, drawing a new bounding box doesn't remove the old one. We've still got our old one there. What it does do is turn it red, right? Because the current bounding box is the one in green, and all the others in the list of bounding boxes are coloured red. So, for example, we could add a third. What's this one here? Ding Si Sui Zu Yi, something. Where's that? There we go. There's Ding Si Sui Zu Yi. So that would be our third. If we wanted to make that third, let's make that third. So I'm editing the transcription pane. I'm going to move that up with Control and then the up key. There we go. So into the third position. And I'm going to remove the no image restriction by hitting Shift N. There we go. So now if there were a third image, it would correspond to that particular transcription. So let's add a third bounding box. There we go. Now, after a while, now notice that this is now green, the current bounding box, and the previous bounding box, that's number 2 in our sequence, is now red. You begin to forget after a while which one's which. Remember, they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. If you want to display the bounding box numbers, you just hit the I button. There we go. And as you can see in the top left corner, there are now numerals for the sequence of bounding boxes. What next? Let's go back to our first inscription. This is the one we're going to concentrate on as an example. So at the moment it's coloured red, right? I've got a different. I got another idea. Let's make the image smaller first with minus. Right. So there are our 3, 1, 2, and 3. We can move through the at the moment the current bounding box is number 3, but we can change that by using the square bracket buttons forwards and backwards, right, to move through that list. So if we go forwards, notice that we've wrapped around and we've gone back to 1. I'm hitting the closed square bracket button at the moment, which looks like it's pointing to the right. Yeah. If you keep hitting that, it'll keep moving through that list. If you hit the other square bracket button, it will move backwards through the list. There we go. At the moment there are only 3, so it's not particularly helpful to have the 2 buttons, but when you've got a long list, it's very helpful to have both, to be able to move backwards and forwards. So let's move over to our inscription number 1. We've now identified it on the image. That means we can hit what can we do? We can hit the spacebar again and move into a new mode. We're now into graph mode. As you can see down at the bottom in the status bar, we've moved into mode equals graph. And the purpose here is simply to put bounding boxes around each of the graphs that correspond to each of the graphs in the transcription window, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the crack numbers 10, 11, 12, 13. And just to make sure we got all those right, we can use our I button and display the ordinal sequence for those boxes. And we're done. We've actually succeeded in capturing all of those images of individual graphs and linking them to the text. Almost. The one thing we need to do is to bring up the editing window for the transcription itself. So notice back on this window where the white is the highlighted current transcription. If we hit the E button, that brings us up an editing window that allows us to actually edit that text. Now we're not going to edit that text right now, we don't need to, but there's the pink editing cursor that you can move up and down through that series of numbers. What we're going to do is to remove. One thing to remark upon is at the moment each of these characters is in the transcription is labeled as null, which means that it, again, rather like no image on the transcription window, it means that it can't accept a corresponding image. Now we're going to get rid of that with with Shift N. Right, so now what we've done is we've allowed all of these slots in the transcription to accept a corresponding image. That's the barely visible gong, but there's yin. There's sui, there's zu, there's jia, there's the female cow, there's the numeral 1, there's ziyong, there's xian, and then there are the 4 crack numbers. Now, of course, what this provides is a very useful visual check on our transcription, right? If any of these don't seem to match up with what we're seeing in the small thumbnail box above, that tells us we probably entered the transcription correctly, and we can now at this stage correct it. But we're not going to correct anything. Everything looks exactly right. So what we're going to do is hit OK, which is going to save that for us. And of course, having achieved all this, we can then hit save at any stage, Control S, and that saves all the data that we've established so far, all of the mappings between individual inscriptions and inscription regions on the image, and individual graphs and graph regions within the inscription image to the database. Okay, that's about all there is to it. If you need more detail than that, including detailed lists of commands and keys and details about how to actually edit the text in the transcriptions, then do read the text online, which is accessible via the ECTP public homepage. There we go, that line there. Okay, all done.